Hi, good evening. I'm Melia Bensussen, or Melia, Artistic Director of Hartford Stage, and grateful you're joining us for our last Seen and Heard of the season. So, as most of you know, but if you're new to us, I'll say these conversations are meant to give you a glimpse at what's happening at Hartford Stage and welcome you into our process. I'm thrilled about tonight's Seen and Heard. We're chatting about our last show of the season, and I'm going to try to channel John Leguizamo as I say this, although he says it far better than I will ever. But it's Kiss My Aztec. It's a fun, raucous, brilliant musical. It's filled with contagious energy and excitement. We have a clip of my conversation that I had with John about a week ago. He's unable to join us live tonight, but he's been very involved with us so far. And we're just excited to share parts of this production, this process, and some of its brilliant collaborators with you. I'm going to ask, I think we can post in the chat some information about that show. You're going to want to see this. I know this conversation will whet your appetite for it, but more than that, if you go on our website, you can view some clips from rehearsals. It's a really just silly and intelligent and raucous evening of theater. I'm also excited to share with all of you, faithful subscribers, patrons, donors, community members of Hartford Stage, that we've announced our next season. You saw if you've been online, you saw the slides fly past with the images of the shows we're producing next season. We're very excited about it, and you can click in the chat to subscribe and learn more about the shows. The gift of subscription, some of you have heard me say this before, is that then you get the full menu, you get the range of voices. And next season is not dissimilar to this in terms of the number of perspectives and different styles, aesthetics, and artists on our stage. So I hope you'll join us. And although we usually start with a scene or an excerpt from a play, we're going to start a little differently this evening. As I'd mentioned, John and I had a long conversation that we recorded since he was aware he wouldn't be able to join us tonight. So I am going to start with that clip. So I'm introducing you virtually to the extraordinary John Leguizamo. I'll share with you that he's someone I've known since the late 80s. He and I did street theater together in New York. We would get on the subway and ride out to Queens. It was a troupe of 4 or 5 of us, and we did bilingual AIDS prevention theater in the late 80s because there was a pandemic back then, a plague that we worried about. John was a brilliant contributor to that effort. So without further ado, let's shift to the conversation with John, and then we'll get into a conversation with the artists working on Kiss My Aztec. Here's John. John, thank you for doing this. This is such a, just such a kick for me personally.
Oh, for me too. I'm enjoying this.
We're thrilled to be doing Kiss My Aztec at Hartford Stage. We're just,
and I'm excited that it's getting a life. I mean, I'm so thrilled. I love this musical so much. I'm so passionate about it. I love the actors. I've never seen actors that can act, be funny, dance, and sing, because I can't do any of that shit.
One thing I love about the show, I just laugh hysterically every time, and I can't stop singing the tunes, and I can't sing at all, so I sing privately. I spare the world. But you've got so much history in there. I mean, it's actually really fucking smart. There's just a lot of real stuff in there, and so you did your homework on this, yeah?
Yeah, like about 15 years ago, I became like really aficionado of Latin history in terms of, our empires, Aztec, Maya, Inca, Taínos, Olmec, Toltec, Zapotec, all of them. And then, the rest of our contributions. So I definitely wanted to get some precision in the storytelling, even though it's a comic, like Book of Mormon, it's like spam a lot, but we got some history in there. We got some knowledge that we'll smuggle in.
I know too, a lot of the folks watching this right now are fans of the Finding Your Roots episode you did.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
talk about that. That's like it connects in such interesting ways to this.
I mean, it's crazy when I did this show because I only thought I had like grandparents, and I'm sure I had great grandparents, but I knew nothing about them. So I went into the show. I'm just going to learn about my grandparents, which I already know enough. And I didn't realize that Skip Gates had some of the greatest genealogists in the world. They're all Harvard and Yale, and hundreds of them. And they found I'm one of the few people they found 500 years of my ancestors, Jesus, all in the Americas. So on one side, I have a conquistador grandparent. My 15th grandfather was a conquistador, Ben Alcazar, who worked for Pizarro and was dissatisfied because back then you had to give a fifth to the crown, and Pizarro could keep as much as he wanted, but nobody else was allowed. So he left them and went to Colombia and founded 4 cities: Popayan, Cali, Armenia, and another one that I can't remember. Wow. And so I'm making atonement. This is like full circle. That Kiss My Aztec is my atonement for the horrors that my great grandfather did.
Well, but there's the other side of the family too, right? I mean, you've got the conquistadores and you've got los indígenas. I mean, you're a mix of everything, which is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. We have some black. We have definitely noble Indians in. It was in the press. Like my 13th or 12th grandfather was when he died, they said noble Indian. I can't remember his name, Jerónimo, something like that.
Yeah. So, coming back to the show a bit and how you've integrated all this part. I mean, did you, after finding your genealogy, change things in Kiss My Aztec, or it was all sort of hand in glove anyway? You were already doing the work.
Yeah, I know. It was crazy. I mean, we were already doing the work, and it matched a lot of the genealogy, which is great when that happens. Yeah. Fascinating that I knew. I mean, I knew obviously that I had.
You felt it inside in some way, and then you made it manifest. Yeah.
So I knew that was there. I mean, and that's the conflict. We conquered ourselves in a lot of ways, and we're all still grappling with that. It doesn't just go away. And I think this Kiss My Aztec is a beautiful way of dealing with it, and dealing with all the issues of the conquest. The toxic masculinity that came from it, the disrespect, and how now we all have to rebuild ourselves and rebuild ourselves in a much more sensitive, accepting, inclusive way, which I'm glad about this world. I'm glad this era that we're in. I think it's a much more forgiving era.
And you tell the story with such a great sense of humor. I mean, I don't think anybody is left unscathed, right? I mean, there's
everybody, and the best way to do history is through comedy. I believe it's the only way to get people to hear your story, to take it in. I think the smartest way to do it is being funny as fuck.
Kiss My Aztec in Hartford has a lot of changes from the last time. You guys have been working like crazy on this.
We've been working really hard. We went back to the drawing board. We wanted to make it tighter, funnier, edgier, and just more perfect. We were searching.
So Hartford's seeing a brand new show. I mean, our audiences are seeing something that's
new songs. One of our boldest songs is the closing. Pardon me, of Act 2.
Yeah.
And it's called a Brown Face song, and it's Pepe and our Aztec rebels trying to break into the Spaniards' fort, and they use a brown face song to hide themselves, sort of like a Latin minstrelsy, and into this. So that's our boldest song that we just created for the show. So that's our first. There's a couple other new songs too, and just restructuring and just tightening, and now it's like a diamond.
It's really exciting that we get to premiere it. John and I talked for a while, and there's so much to discuss, and even the things he just said. But one of the things I wanted to share is how much he's loved performing for Hartford audiences. He's been at the Bushnell and Foxwoods and other places, and he's really excited about bringing this piece to the region. So we're thrilled to premiere this work at Hartford Stage. I want to bring on the extraordinary folks who've agreed to join us for this conversation. Some of the principal performers in this work, as well as the extraordinary choreographer, Mayte Natalio, Krystina Alabado, Z. Oye, mira, están juntos Krystina, Z, and Joel. Joel. Y Mayte, no te he visto toda peinada, qué bella. These, oh, look at you three. You look so beautiful. It's very staged over there. Artist housing here in Hartford. I can't thank you all enough for joining. I know you had a long rehearsal day. I know you've been doing run-throughs. We can explain to our wonderful audience what that all means and where you are in the process, and that tomorrow you move into the theater, which is a really exciting moment. But and I wanted to say two things because I always forget to say this. This is meant to be a conversation with all of you at home watching. Put questions in the chat, and the terrific Hartford Stage staff is tracking that. And we'll also, everyone is Zoom savvy or more Zoom savvy than I am, I know, but we'll be tracking those as well as we go through. So that, and the bios for Krystina and Z and Joel and Mayte are all in the chat. It would take the entire period of This Seen and Heard to sing their praises and tell you how many places they've been. I'll share the little secret that I do want to come back to, that this is Z's homecoming to Hartford Stage. So we welcome Z back to Hartford Stage, and we can talk about the last time he was here with Matthew Lopez. I'm just gonna, I want to jump in with something John shares in that little clip, okay? Because there is so much, as John puts it, highbrow and lowbrow in this musical. But this mention of a brown face number, I think, bears a little explanation or conversation. So I don't know which one of you wants to sort of tackle this, but this idea of brown face and how it kind of weaves its way through the show, and what we mean, what you all mean in the creation of Kiss My Aztec about a brown face minstrel show, because I think it's just brilliant and really does a lot in terms of telling the story not only of the Conquista and our Aztec rebels, which we'll talk about in a minute, but just of our culture and portrayals of Latinos, something that I know is near and dear to everybody's heart on this production. So somebody save me from myself and speak up at this point.
I'll start, and then I'll let you all.
All right, Mayte.
I think that brownface has always historically been used, obviously, to degrade and to ridicule and make fun of, right? So what's clever about the way that it's used in this show is that the Aztecs are taking ownership of the brownface and using it for their benefit in order to in order to further their mission, which is to take over the Citadel and to beat the Spaniards. So it's like taking ownership of something that's been used to degrade. And then, you know, what I love about the song is that it is self-aware, that it's not just like a brown face routine out of context, or even within the song, there are moments where the song is very clearly stating what's wrong with the song and what's wrong with what they're saying, which I think to me, it's one of the best moments in the show that is the perfect balance of historical context and comedy and absurdity.
Yeah, it's great. Joel, it's your lines, right? When you sing of colonization. Yeah, can you just share a couple of those lyrics?
Well, I mean, I don't want to spoil it for the audience.
You won't spoil it. Just give us a little context.
But you know, I think a lot about like in the early aughts, there was like that like Latin, the explosion of like the Latin explosion in music with people like Ricky Martin and Shakira, and that sort of became like the hot spicy Latino was like sort of the trope that a lot of us, and especially as a lot of as performers, when you're then getting called in to read for stuff, it's usually reinforcing a lot of those stereotypes. So it's kind of it's what I'm so excited about this show, because it allows us to sort of reclaim some of that hurt and damage that I think the industry has done to our community for so long, and understanding that like it's something that we had to do, we don't have to do it anymore, and it's kind of fun to like use it against the Spaniard.
The performing Latino, you mean? The sort of, could you be
What
more
does that mean to
Latino?
perform, to be this version of the Latino that you think we're supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the happy amigos, which is the number we're talking about, is challenging, I think. And I think it's okay if everyone feels differently throughout the song. Even I, as the performer, do at times. I think it's funny, then I think it's weird, then I think it's uncomfortable, then I think it's crazy. Like, and it's really challenging the boundaries that we have as far as like, what if we set this group of people up to, I suppose, like how we've set up, again, the idea of what Latinos, Latinas, Latinx people are, and again, how we can use it to help us in the show. And me and Joelle sort of lead the charge of that number.
Mm-hmm.
And like Mayte said, like within the song, we are also, we know that it's not, we don't want to be saying those things necessarily, but we're using it to help us, which is an interesting, you know.
So I'll just throw out just a little, guidance for our audience that Krystina and Joelle are Aztec rebels of a different sort. Part of what I love about this show is that it celebrates a performer's improvisational skills as a weapon, right? Because Joelle plays a very uncharacteristic Aztec warrior, only in this he also has puppets and wants to be a performer, and Krystina is fighting as a woman in a culture that did not have female warriors, as far as we know, historically. Oh, you both turned, and I was like, I hope everything's okay there.
I mean, it's fine. There was just like a weird beeping over there. I was like, what is that? But we're good. We're good.
And Zeke gets to represent the dysfunction of the Spanish Empire. Yeah.
Indeed.
Delicious villain.
And so the piece really picks up in some ways, if people have experienced John Leguizamo's previous work, like Latin History for Morons, right? And it's truly historical. I mean, that's what's kind of amazing is, as John says, I mean, he really did his research. There's so much history in here. And how does that play for all of you in experiencing the show and connecting it to the history?
Yeah, I think what's really remarkable about the piece in a historical context is how, for me as an actor, I get to do research and understand essentially what it is to have that conflict within my history. I think that's something that's John was speaking.
That's wonderful. John talks about sort of conquering, that there's an inner battle, right? And that you kind of end up conquering yourself, whether or not you want to, a kind of burying of some of your voice.
Yes, it's very much, for me, an experience recognizing that I have a history in my family and in our culture that is so at odds with itself sometimes, but also what I think the show does beautifully is celebrate the accomplishments and the unity that comes in our community, and sort of the resilience really of what happened and what is happening today, and how it affects the Latina community. I'm really moved by playing a Spaniard in particular, recognizing, like, I remember I did this like Reiki journey to the ancestors moment, and I recognized, the indigenous meeting the Spaniard, the conquiste. And for me, playing a Spaniard has been very interesting to develop physically and recognize that, like, there is just so much repression within that identity, and within my character as well. And so I just find it fascinating to recognize that I also get to play an Aztec, and there's just so much freedom, there's so much liberation and perseverance. And then the Spaniard that I play is a little kooky,
Well, Mayte, they're talking about bodies, right? And Mayte is the choreographer, and I have to say that choreography for this, I've been so privileged to be in rehearsals with all of you and watch the extraordinary movement you're all achieving and Mayte's interpretation. What does it mean as Z even talks about this? The difference in the movement between the Spaniards and the Aztecs, and how did you do your research, and how the hell did you get it to be so effing fun while dealing with such a serious subject in a way?
I think what's very helpful with this musical is the music that Benjamin Velez and David Kamp have put together, because it kind of guides you. It's kind of informing me of which direction to go, which is really helpful. And then from there, I can, like, there's a tango in there. You hear paso doble, you hear a salsa, you hear like traditional musical theater. As a choreographer, it is so fun to dive in there. But the main thing that I keep saying, a lot of the movement is grounded. It's like of the earth. Like I'm always saying, plie, 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 like bed, like I want them low to the ground for a lot of the movement. And to me, like that to me is like what it means to be indigenous, like of the earth, to respect the earth. You know, when we think of like European and more classical, everything is more pulled up. You know, you think about the court and, you know, they wore heels and they wore corsets and that, and people of the earth, they walked around barefoot and they had relationships with the earth and with the elements. So the movement to me is very important to be grounded. And then when we're not grounded, it's on purpose to have contrast to that and to show a different, you know, a different origin when we go up a little more. But it's been really fun. I mean, it's like, it's, you know, there's so many different styles in this to play with. So I've had a great time playing with them.
It's really, as John said, this is a brand new version in many ways, although Joelle and Z, you both have a history with the piece. Oh, yeah, we get a cameo.
He's just he's been being annoying, so I have to pick him
Listen, welcome. This is, you know, the gifts of, look at that face. Okay. But
so much camera time, yeah.
not at all. But Joelle and Z, you've had a history with this. How different is it to be in Hartford? And Krystina, we are so lucky to have you premiering this role at Hartford Stage. I've told you personally how I felt so blessed to be at your callback and how amazing your Colombina is already. But can you guys talk in some way, all three of you, what does it feel like to be in Hartford doing this right now?
Well, I mean, I was just reflecting earlier today with Chad Carstarphen, who's also part of the ensemble of the show. He and I have been a part of the show for almost 10 years. Since its first reading at Pregones Theater in the Bronx as a play, that it has evolved into what it is now. And I guess what's so exciting about being at Hartford now is that it feels like the show is the best it's ever been. It's very much like a tight piece of theater that's exciting and funny. And it's also just illuminating of how long it takes to make good art.
Yeah, it's a great point.
There's a misconception that like people just write musicals and then they put them on stage and then they go to Broadway. Like, no, at least if you want something to be good, giving it time to develop, to grow. I've never been a part of a show where I've been able to like work on it, take some time away, do it again, do a full run in 2019, have a couple years off, come back to it now. And it's like, it's stuff that's, or just being able to make choices and deepen the character in a way that is only because we've been with it for so long. Mm-hmm. It feels like such a privilege to be able to do that, because usually today was our last day in the rehearsal room and we go into the theater tomorrow. And so I feel like we're in such a good place where usually when I'm in a new musical and it's the day before tech, we're still scrambling. There's still like huge holes in the show. We don't know if this moment's going to work. Whereas now we're like, everything's kind of set. We're just going to be able to really deepen everything in the next couple of days. So it's very exciting.
It's been an honor, like for me, to step into this piece, like with such open arms from everybody, obviously, but also like for me personally, I have been in so few rooms in my career of, you know, Latino, Latina, Latinx, Latin people all creating and also all getting to be funny and be in a comedy. It
Yeah,
really,
that's a great, right? That we're not, no one's suffering, right?
I
It's not a
can't,
story of
right.
suffering.
And I don't think people realize how rare that is. I either go in for Maria or Nina, and it's great, but like, it's just amazing to be able to do something so different and also get the opportunity for all of us to just be clowns. Like, when do we get that? It's
Never.
I'm so inspired by that and like the opportunity. And I think it's theater that must be seen because it's just a huge opportunity for our community and for our voices to be heard in that way and for us to celebrate our culture in a way that's not suffering. There's pieces of that within and embedded in the comedy that we are telling, but it's really, I mean, every day I go to work and go to rehearsal, I'm so privileged to be there. I really am.
There's so much joyousness. Oh, go ahead, Z. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna completely agree with what you're saying and acknowledge Mayte's work. I mean, we can all sing her praises from the end of the day to
Yeah.
and how much that informs the storytelling. What her, Tony, and David Gardos, our music director, music supervisor, has what they've orchestrated with all of us in this new run. And as you mentioned, Joel, just recognizing the years that we've been a part of the show, and then the 2 years of a pandemic that we are still experiencing, and how that's informing what I bring to the room. I think what we all are coming to, I was talking to Tony Taccone, our director, earlier about this, just like, my body is not used to doing this, or it hasn't done this in so long. And a friend of mine said, it's like going to the Olympics without the training, right? We have definitely been able to have the time, and Hartford Stage has afforded us the time to get our bodies in shape, to get our minds, our hearts, and our spirits in the position to really, I think, tackle this work with our hearts first. And like you said, Krystina, just the clown, like to be able to play a clown. I mean, I'm a clown in my life. My day to day, this is just how I operate. But to be able to tell a story with a rich history and a rich joy, I think that I hope audiences will walk away with is a true gift, and I'm grateful to Hartford Stage for that opportunity.
I laugh for 8 hours a day in the room. I literally laugh all day, every day.
Yeah, I agree. And what I love about the show, among many things, though, is that it kind of erases the division between us and them. That an audience is invited in such a heartwarming way. So as opposed to it being, this is a Latino story and you don't have anything to do with it, or you won't get it, or you're not part of us, or you're the enemy. It feels so completely, it melts boundaries and invites everyone to join in. I'd be remiss if I didn't sing the praises of the key creators who, besides John, who are not joining us right now. Tony Taccone, the wonderful director, was going to be here. Apparently, even during COVID, you can still get a cold. So Tony just has a terrible cold. We all look at him with a slight amount of panic of, is this COVID? Right? But no, you can still get cold. So Tony, but you mentioned David Kamp and Benjamin Velez, who have made a score and lyrics that just traverse, Mayte, as you were saying, centuries and styles, right? And allow all of you to kind of flourish in these different vocabularies of musical life. Z, you were last. Oh, go ahead, Joel. Sorry.
I think what's also kind of exciting about the piece is that the last time this show was performed was back in 2019, and the world has changed a lot since then. And how the show functions within our current socio-political climate, how it functions within the canon of the American theater. I think it's been really exciting to sort of return to it. And some of those changes from Berkeley and La Jolla are because the world is different, and what we were saying back then doesn't really apply now. And how can we make sure that we're like responding to our current moment and not feel like we're taking steps back, So it's been really exciting to feel like, how can this show continue to like push our narrative forward, instead of feeling like, hey, it worked back in 2019, let's just do that again.
Yeah.
Everyone in the room has been like, let's respond to how the world has changed, and that's really exciting.
It does feel like even there's lines that are scripted that feel like they're improvised at the moment for this audience, right? Which is really part of the magic trick that is the show. Z, you were last with us with us, I say, owning Hartford Stage's history, even though I was not there. But what's it like to be back? You were here, you were right out of school. You told me you were just a baby when you were last at Hartford Stage.
It was 8 years ago. And
So you're still a baby, just to be clear.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Just to be very clear.
Okay, yeah, I'm feeling much better
Oh,
now.
don't you start with me. No way.
Yeah, it was 8 years ago. It was an amazing opportunity to be out of town for the first time, working on a play for the first time for me. That was a story about Latina people. It was, for those of you in the audience who came and saw somewhere, it was a piece about a Puerto Rican family living in the West 50s before Lincoln Center was built, and sort of the conflict that that this family is experiencing while reckoning with their joy and their love of the city and their love of their culture and their love of the theater. And I think what this piece does so beautifully, Kiss My Aztec does so beautifully, and what is so nice to recognize is like a recurring theme at Hartford Stage, is taking this difficulty, this obstacle, and finding light and love in it. I can't say joy and love enough in this process, because it really is so evident from the support that we get at Hartford Stage, to our creative team, to the cast that I love going to rehearsal with every day. There's just there's an energy here at Hartford Stage, I think, and maybe it's the spring too. We're ready for the pool to open. I'm hoping that audiences will come out, as they do at Hartford Stage, with a vibrancy and a curiosity. I think that's what I always am grateful for in my heart from Hartford Stage at a very pivotal point in my career, recognizing that there is so much being offered to us and so much curiosity here at Hartford Stage. So I'm just grateful that we have the opportunity to keep having conversations, and I'm looking forward to our talkbacks with you all, and it's going to be a really, especially thinking about three Happy Amigos, what conversation we're going to have after the show with y'all.
We can't wait for our first Happy Amigos audience.
Yes.
I am waiting for it.
All right, give us a little more. Remind us about Happy Amigos. It's the end of Act 1.
End of Act
And that's
1.
our brown face number, in a sense,
The brown face routine. We've set up, there's a character who's famous for brown face routines, and so
who's French, right? Just to add to the
Frenchman, Pierre Pierrot, and I, as Pepe, have to impersonate him in order for us to get into the Citadel. And in order to do that, we're asked to do one of Pierre Pierrot's famous brown face routines. And so begrudgingly, or in order, I have to do it. We have to do it in order to get in.
Or they're going to kill us.
Or they're going to kill us.
yeah, there's motivation. Yeah. What's my motivation? Would you like to stay alive?
I don't want to be captured.
You've done a really great job at not giving away too much.
We never really talked
we don't
about
want
it.
you to know yet.
We haven't really talked about it.
I know, we just, a few more teasing, of the audience.
But it's a cool challenge as an actor to be like, I'm doing this thing. I hate that I'm doing this thing. I want to make sure that the audience knows that I'm not doing it. Like that.
Well, it's layers, right? Because it's a Latine actor playing at an Aztec who's pretending to be a white conquistador, right? And making fun of the Aztecs for the white, by Latino actors in an entirely Latino company. And someone comments, I don't think this is giving away too much, someone comments about Joel's skin color because he doesn't look white enough to be French. And then Krystina, you say, well, it's makeup.
Exactly. So that's where we're really like, it's very tough. But honestly, Melia, you just explained that quite well. That is exactly why I said it's complicated to go back in and out of the song, because you're thinking of all this as the actor, as the
Right, because it's layers.
It's so layered.
It's an onion.
It is
It's
an onion,
baby.
Oh, yeah.
But it also it's really fun. We have a good time in that number. Like it's a great song. Like it's a fun song. Like, and you know, Mayte put some awesome choreography in it that we have a great time doing.
And it also
Yeah.
feels like a huge, at least personally, it's like a huge fuck you to like all the times I've had to do that
Yes.
for people, or the times that's been asked of me as a performer to, because your livelihood depends on it, that you're just like, okay, I have to do the thing that everyone expects me to do because it's a paycheck. And so it's kind of for me, at least, it feels like a fun, like reclaiming that thing that I've been forced to do so many times.
And
It's
remind
weight.
them a
It's
little. Oh, go ahead, Mayte, please.
no. I said I think as an actor, even as a creator, it's weight. We approach it with much more enthusiasm when we have agency over it and we're empowered over it to tell our story, as opposed to somebody's like, can you just make me like a salsa routine? Can you do something Latin-y? Can you do something? And then you hear the music and it's like, and it feels like elevator, you know, like generic
Muzak,
Latin.
yeah.
Muzak. And you know, so like, and you're like, sure, I'm gonna make this generic. Whereas like with this, it's like, oh no, we're gonna go there because I get to tell the story and I'm gonna make it as ridiculous as possible just to show how ridiculous, you know, this is. But then within that, there's brilliance. And that is the more complicated and the realistic complexities of brownface and blackface and all kind of minstrelsy, because you look back at history and it's like, yes, that stuff was done to, we're not proud of it, but also the actors that were doing that were brilliant. And the actors that were forced to do that, there was brilliant, and that was their only way. And I always put myself like, I'm like, if I was in those times, like as a performer and entertainer, I'm like, do I want to wash dishes or do I want to be on a stage in brownface? I might have chose the brownface.
Absolutely. Mayte, who did you grow up watching perform?
Oh my God. I grew up in Queens, same neighborhoods as John. So I grew up, my parents are Dominican. So there was like two worlds, you know? So I grew up very heavily influenced by, Celia Cruz and Selena and, Mark Anthony and the Fania All-Star. So I grew up with, my parents are the dancing, partying family. Like, it's like important to celebrate. So I grew up with that, but then I grew up in New York, and I was like Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson, like pop, I started dancing because of Paula Abdul and video and Janet Jackson and Michael, like that's why I started dancing. And I grew up in a hip hop era, like, in the 90s. And so so all of those things, like growing up in Queens, New York, and going to school in the city, like, and all those sounds of pop music and house music. And that's the kind of music that I grew up like dancing and loving, but then going home and dancing with my abuelo and my grandmas, who all dance a lot till 4 or 5 in the morning. And so I know a lot of old songs. My grandfather listened to a lot of old Cuban music. So I just feel like all of that together, what's beautiful about this show is that it's all in this show.
It's all true. You get to use all of your history.
Yeah, no, it's true. All of it's in here.
That's really amazing.
And then I went to school for then I went to a conservatory, and then I did like the whole classical thing. But like initially,
I love that it's like, and then it's like,
and then
a little moment.
and then we all did that. We all, and then we trained in classics, and then we trained in American. I started as a modern dancer, and modern and ballet. So then I trained in the American art form, so I have that, and then I trained in classics. So then literally all of that is in the show.
Amazing. Tell us a little more. How many more people are in this show? Right? I bugged the 4 of you to join me tonight, but we have a cast of how many?
14.
And
right? It's small for a musical.
It is,
yeah.
But what I love about our cast, I was talking about this with somebody else, is that each person in the cast, every single person in the ensemble, every person that plays multiple roles, everyone is such an individual.
Yes.
You get to know each person on the stage. So at least when I watch, like every time I watch, I think about someone in our company. and everyone is an absolute star and is owning everything they're doing, both
Yeah.
as an individual and as a beautiful company of actors together.
And the 14 of you shapeshift. I mean, just to, you know, again, not to give anything away, but we have battles in this show that are, it's just 14 people on stage. And thanks to Tony and Mayte, you'd never know it was just 14A. And B, it really, again, in the sort of the dissolving of boundaries, there's no us and them even within the cast, right? Because you're all in both camps, quite literally and figuratively, as the show progresses.
I mean, that's something that I love about our room, is that it is so diverse and inclusive. You know, we have people of all, which is, I guess, just like the Latin diaspora, right? It's like people of every color, every race. And I love being in the room. I was in the car today on the way to rehearsal. It's like, it's so nice to have a community of actors where I feel like I don't have to code switch, you know, or pretend to be a certain way or act, you know, talk very proper around. And I never feel judged in the room, you know, I mean, criticized, we get notes. But I just want to speak to a point.
I've sat next to Mayte while she takes notes.
As I'm about to talk about Mayte for a second, there's just to learn that about Mayte as well, about what you've listened to, grew up listening to, and the artists that influenced you. What I love so beautifully are some of the numbers in the show that are, you know, reflect so many different genres. Mayte has brought this like wonderful, vivid, playful energy to every number. And what I love, there's a number in the second act that I get to play in, and I have so much collaboration with Mayte, with the other actors on stage. I think that's what's really the challenge of collaboration is, you know, we're all coming from different perspectives, all different understandings of how to approach theater. But I think you know, our creative team did an amazing job at assembling an ensemble of actors that listen to each other on stage.
Right. I mean, I'd say here, for those of us for those of you joining us who may not have had the privilege of being in a rehearsal room for a period of time, there's a funny thing that happens when you rehearse a play, which is if there's a villain in the play, there can be a kind of paranoia that sets in among the actors, right? You all know what I'm talking about. If there's like someone who's vilified in the play, or if it's a tragedy, like an Iago within a rehearsal process, there can be a kind of sense of someone being excluded because the line between the character and the actor and rehearsal dynamics can really shift. And part of what I love about your rehearsal room, and I think it speaks to the generous heart of this piece, is that that doesn't exist. There's, in a way, there's no good guys and bad guys in this piece, even though there are the conquistadores y hay los indígenas, but there's somehow just a wit and generosity about both sides always. And I think the fact that you're all playing in both camps all the time helps that.
I mean, it's a true ensemble.
Right.
Yeah, I was saying it's a true ensemble. Everybody's dancing in every number. Like there's no one.
That's right. It's not like
a princess track. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's dancing.
All the time.
Everyone.
And I will now publicly apologize for the fact that AC failed you for a bit, given how hard you were all working in that room.
It was Bikram.
It was
Bikram rehearsal. But I think it's like, you know, I think all of us are just so, frankly, so excited to be there. I think we're all just so happy to be there. Also, it's a comedy, you know, like, guy, like if you can't have fun in this room, that's a conversation between you and your therapist. like
it's also, we should share with our audiences, it's a very raunchy show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
PG-13.
Yeah.
They say worse. They love Euphoria is the hottest show right now.
That's true.
Comparison. Well, you know, when we were in Berkeley, there was a moment, and I learned a lot from you, Joel, at Berkeley. We had a talk back, and you know, someone was saying, you know, it's difficult. That, you know, they wish they could bring their young grandchildren to the show, and there was an 11-year-old in the audience that was like, I loved the show, or 13-year-old. She was young. And she's like, I got something from the show. So there's something for everyone. And I think
I
of
agree.
all ages. My 3-year-old niece will be seeing the show. She'll have no clue what is happening, but she'll be like, colors, lights, sound. We were warned that there's a screen in the lobby if she gets, feisty. But if you're there on the 19th, look out for the.
Well, I mean, in a way, it's very much John Leguizamo's mission, right, of this merging of the lowbrow and the highbrow. And he mentions spam a lot in Book of Mormon. I'd throw in South Park in there, right? I mean, there's just a vocabulary that's kind of saying nothing is verboten. We say everything, and we make fun of everything, right? No one goes unscathed in this production. And
yeah,
no
I think
one.
that's also why it's nice as an actor is I don't feel scared to make a choice or try something or whatever, because everyone is just yes and trying things, and we're also again making fun of so many things and each other within the play that it sort of feels so free to just kind of like try something crazy and see if it works, or like make a choice in the car and bring it to the rehearsal.
Really, the car rides to rehearsal are great moments.
Let's see if Tony like responds to this. Let's try this today. We're like Tony.
But that's what people don't understand about like making a show. Is like it never like when you're in this like incubator period, you're always working. You're always thinking. Like you're constantly sending emails and it's it's a lot of work. And Joel's saying that it takes 10 years, and then that's 10 years of working hard. So they're going home after rehearsal. You're thinking about all the notes you got. You're thinking about all the things that you're gonna do tomorrow, things you're gonna try to try to incorporate that. No, I'm looking at things that I'm like, I didn't really like that. It doesn't make sense. What can I do to make that scene better? So it's a all day thing. You're having dreams about the show. You wake up and so
and it's a machine, right? I mean, a musical, unlike a play, I mean, it's a play on steroids, because you've got all the components that need to really be working so closely together. The book is forwarded by the songs. I think you all were just talking about this, how the dance advances plot. That's, I think, Mayte, one of your great gifts among many, is how much story and character you reveal through movement, and thanks to, an extraordinary cast.
I think Mayte said this earlier too, that the music is so, like, it's all there in the music. And I think Benjamin and David just gave us so much to work with.
Yeah.
I
it's
like
a great score.
The details of Sondheim, different genres, and but there's so much there for the actor to work with. There's and it's great to witness the collaborative process between the writing team and the entire creative team, to see it evolve, and from years of Berkeley and La Jolla to now, as John was saying in your short interview earlier, that they really they brought things, they went to the drawing table, and we were saying this beforehand, it just moves. The show moves.
It has, and just to give credit, right? So it originated at Berkeley Rep in Berkeley, California, and then it went to La Jolla Playhouse. Those productions were identical, right? It went straight from Berkeley to La Jolla, and then we were lucky. The pandemic did not have many gifts, but one of them was the connection with Joey Parnes, the commercial producer who's involved with us, who brought this show to me and said, maybe you'd like to take a look at this, right? So here we are. And this is a pre-Broadway experience. It's a full run at Hartford Stage. And it is a real privilege to host all of you before you all go on to even greater glory, right? I will say, just even hearing the songs in rehearsal, I can't get them out of my head. So I can only imagine that you're singing these things day and night within your own mind.
Yeah, they are. They get stuck in my head.
I'm conscious of time. I promised you all it would only be an hour, long days. But you all agreed very generously to join me in a poem reading. We started these Seen and Heard broadcasts over 2 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic. And so we love ending with poems. It felt appropriate to me, very selfishly. It's a favorite poem of mine by Antonio Machado. And the poem is called Caminante no hay camino, Traveler, there is no road. And I do feel you're all creating a new road, so it felt very appropriate. I'm going to ask you all to read it. The English translation is by Mary G. Berg and Dennis Maloney. And so over to you guys. Caminante no hay camino. Vamos.
Caminante, son tus huellas el camino y nada más. Caminante, no hay camino, se hace camino al andar.
Al andar se hace el camino y al volver la vista atrás. Se ve la senda que nunca se ha de volver a pisar. Caminante no hay camino, sino estelas en el mar.
Traveler, your footprints are the only road, nothing else. Traveler, there is no road. You make your own path as you walk.
As you walk, you make your own road. And when you look back, you see the path. You will never travel again. Traveler, there is no road. Only a ship's wake on the sea.
Ay, thank you. Yeah, I know, it's good, yeah? That Antonio Machado. And so I will now, another scene in her tradition. And I forgot to warn Mayte and you three, this is now when we have a toast. So if you had alcohol or something to toast with, water too, or anything, bravo. And invite all of you who'd like to join to turn on your cameras. Mayte, I don't know if the dog will bring you something to drink.
I have wine. I'll do the toast and I'll go drink it.
Fair enough. So I invite any of you who want to share your screens with us to join us, and we'll have a range of our subscribers and friends of the theater joining us to welcome Kiss My Aztec to Hartford stage. Really.
Melia, before we toast, can we give away a line from the show?
Por favor, of course, go for it, Z.
A toast!
A toast!
I need more. I want more.
A toast.
There is a good toast in the show.
There is a good toast in the show. Hi, Eleni. All right. Well, so a few more cameras. I cannot encourage you enough to come see this show. We're gonna have a ball hosting them at Hartford Stage. We know you'll enjoy it as much as we're enjoying hosting them. And we just wish the Kiss My Aztec company all the luck in the world as they enter the world of tech. First preview is June 1st. So you guys have a little time in the theater. We'll launch you into the theater. And for a Jewish joke, a friend of mine, an actor, once said, Tech, the festival of lights. So there you go. Thank you. So a toast to Kiss My Aztec. We hope you'll all join us. And also, please, if you haven't already, look at our offerings for next season. We have a really exciting 22-23 ahead. But Krystina, Joel, Z, Mayte, you are ending our season just in the best, most celebratory way possible. We're so grateful to all of you. So we raise our glasses to Kiss My Aztec. Bravo, adelante, to a wonderful production, and hope to see you all at the theater. Be well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Mayte. Thank you, Krystina.
See you at the show, everyone.
See you at the theater.